Democracy benefits from open and frequent exchanges of policy views by candidates, which is why we are putting this debate on, is to have this open and free exchange of different viewpoints. Voters rely on debates to make their choices about candidates who are running for public office and to understand the differences between these candidates. So for our final debate of the day, I'm going to introduce our gubernatorial candidates to come on up on stage. Our gubernatorial candidates to come on stage. Democrat Senator Fred Love and Libertarian Colt Shelby are participating. Come on up. Governor Sarah Sanders declined our invitation to be here. She has ceded her time to her opponents. So you'll get extra time today to talk, guys. How about that? As a reminder, all the questions have been prepared in advance, but our candidates have not seen or are aware of any of the questions. They didn't get any advance notice on this. These questions came from the working media, which is basically all of you in this room. There'll be no questions taken from the audience, and I ask that you all be mindful and respectful of the candidates and their time, and silence your phones. Please no outburst or applause during all of this. We'll give you a chance to applaud these candidates at the end of the debate. And I say that now that my phone will probably go off in the middle of this, even though I have it on silent and the volume turned down. It tripped off on me in the middle of a TV taping the other day, which was a little bit embarrassing there. So I just answered it with, "Yes, sir, Mr. President," and went on. So the candidates have drawn their numbers to determine their seat order, their opening statement order, and their closing statement order. And so in this debate, each candidate will have the opportunity to make a 2-minute long opening statement for each question. They'll have a minute and a half to answer. There'll be a 1-minute rebuttal. I will tell you guys this. If you've said all that you want to say and you don't want to spend any of that rebuttal time talking, we'll move on to the next question and might allow us to take more questions, but you're welcome to take all the time that we've allotted. So, but just if you've said all you want to say and you want to move on, we can do that. After everyone answers, each candidate's going to have another minute for that rebuttal if they want to clarify their remarks. And at the end of the debate, each candidate will have 2 minutes to make their closing statements. We have official timekeepers down here. They're going to give notifications when 30 seconds remain and when time is up. And if we are through all of the instructions, are you gentlemen ready to begin? Are you ready to rumble?
Let's do it.
All right. We'll see about that. All right. Senator Fred Love won the opening statement drawing, and so he gets to go first. Senator?
Thank you, Roby. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I want to say thank you for this invitation. This is a great opportunity to let Arkansas know who I am. I have 3 questions. My first question begins like this. How many of you all know that we cannot afford another 4 years under Sarah Sanders? How many of you all know that my opponent, Colt Shelby, does not have the experience to run state government? How many of you all know that I have been serving you for the last 16 years in the Arkansas State Legislature, and I am ready on day 1? I am Senator Fred Love, and I'm running to be the next governor of the great state of Arkansas. You all, the verdict is out. This administration has failed us. We're first in food insecurity. We're second in infant mortality. We're fourth in maternal mortality. We're 44th overall in quality of life. We're 48 in health, and we're 50th. We are 50th in deaths caused by preventable diseases. If that was a report card, it would be an F. You all, we cannot have this anymore. I love Arkansas, and that is why I'm running to be the next governor of the great state of Arkansas. There's no other place that I would rather be than here serving you, and I would be honored to be your next governor of the great state of Arkansas. Thank you.
All right. Colt, your turn.
I just got one question. What'd you do in 16 years? Thanks, everybody, for being here. I'm thankful for the Arkansas Press Association for giving us this opportunity to have this debate. Hopefully after the end of this, you can find who's the better opponent in this debate. This term, we need to address a lot of things: education, crime, recidivism, apprenticeship programs for our youth that's not going to college. We need to work on economic development in areas that want it and it's not forced upon. We need to work on the affordability for Arkansans. Sorry, I wrote all this down. We need to protect the poultry farmers from losing their contracts in Northwest Arkansas. We need to find creative ways to help our row crop farmers of the Delta. We need to stop the data centers till we know what they bring and what they take away. And we need to focus on women's health and become a pro-life state, not a pro-birth state. And we need to work on the years of neglect in our infrastructure and our emergency facilities that's affected every single Arkansan in this room. Now, the current governor and I, we disagree on many things. First is education, where I like to stick with the Arkansas Constitution and provide for our children a general, suitable, and efficient system of free public schools. She wants EFA accounts and to defund public education, where she lets our communities get bombarded by data centers, wind turbines, and solar panels. I think the community deserves a say-so to protect their rights. She has higher aspirations in D.C., and she will not be here long, and I will be here till my dying days.
Time is up.
Sorry.
All right, you're right. All right, we're going to alternate Q&A in here, but we're and sticking with our order. Senator Love, you're going to go first. Colt, you're going to go second on this first question. And I am going to give you a pretty easy question to begin with because I want you both to tell me a story. I want you to tell me what went on behind the scenes and what went into your decision-making process to run for governor. Tell me about the conversations you had with family, friends, and supporters that encouraged you to make this decision. Senator?
Well, Roby, there were multiple people who had come to ask me to run for governor. And I'll be honest, the first thing I said was no. You're not going to do this, you're not going to do this, no. But then more and more people began to ask me. And so I went to my wife and I said, Sharonda, they're asking me to run for governor. The first thing that we did was we took it to the Lord in prayer. Now I think God has a funny sense of humor because he says, Fredrick, you're going to be going over here. I said, wait a minute, but this is something that I wanted to do over here. So I prayed again. He says, Fredrick, you're going to go over here. I said, no, there's something that I want to do over here. I prayed again. He says, Fredrick, you're going to be the governor of the great state of Arkansas. That's when I put on my shoes and so I said, I'm ready to go. You all, I took this to God in prayer. That's how I enter everything and every big decision that I make.
All right, Colt.
Well, it was a lot of things. I think everybody knows my story. It started out with the Franklin County Prison. That's where it all started to begin. And then when I went down to down to the Senate, down to the House, and seeing how these guys operate, and I don't think it's fair to the citizens of Arkansas that most of the legislators don't listen to the constituents. They forget who they work for, and that's one of the biggest issues we have in this state. It isn't so much the governor, it's the General Assembly that does what they want to do versus what the people say. So that's what struck my attention first. Then when you see the incompetence in our state government that lack their credentials to do what they're supposed to do, that don't help people, then, the governor's job is the executive branch. The General Assembly makes the laws. They don't have to follow suit, but they do, and that's the biggest issue we have in this state. So that's what's urged me to go, and I'm going to give them the opportunity to be legislators instead of just doing what they're told under a dictator. And that's why I'm running.
All right, you each get a 1-minute rebuttal if you want it. Fred, you'd be first if you want it.
No, as I said, I made the decision with God, and that's what I stand by.
Anything to add, Colt, with your extra minute?
Nope, I think I just said it all. I think that it's pretty plain and simple. I wish the legislators would legislate.
Okay. This question will come to you first, Colt. Let's talk about everybody's position on education. Specifically, I want to drill in on the school voucher program, the education freedom accounts. Just if you look at the numbers, it's going to be difficult to repeal that. So you can assume that you have the strength to repeal that or that you don't. But I want to know if you maybe would like to see the education freedom accounts, I want both of you to answer this question. Would you like to see them tied to income levels? Would that be a solution, or do you have other solutions on how to address the controversy around education freedom accounts?
Absolutely, Roby. So, we know we can't afford it the way it's set up, and I think it did help a lot of kids that didn't have that opportunity before. Homeschooling, I think it's great. The numbers are coming up. I think we micromanage them more than we do the private schools. I would like to see an income base come to it so we can sustain it, and we could put some of that money maybe towards public education. There's a lot of areas that we're lacking. Pre-K program is one. I don't believe in universal pre-K either. I think we should ask the teachers, get with the superintendents, get with the school boards, and get more local control. And that's going to be key to success for Arkansas. And that's why we keep failing, is because we get these legislators that come in there and they think they know, and half of them aren't educated and shouldn't have probably passed high school. But they've never lived a real life. So if the reason we have a low voter turnout, like Kelly and them was talking about earlier, is because we don't educate our kids on the liberties and push forward the narrative of how important it is that these elected officials are representing us. And now we're voting for people on popularity contests. And hopefully we can train our kids, give them a good, adequate education without all the EFA accounts, and get back to our public schools and start teaching our kids to learn, not teaching them to pass a test.
Fred, same question to you.
You know what? I have a question to the public. Do you all believe that we can afford the EFA accounts any longer? That is your answer, Colt. No. The public does not want EFA accounts. I will not administer EFA accounts. As the executive of the state, my Department of Education will not administer EFA accounts. But what we will do is we will reinvest that money into the public education system, because that's where the money should go in the first place. We have chronically underfunded public education, and then we blame teachers and we blame students for not learning. No, it is our failure. That will change under my watch as governor. I will invest in I will invest in making sure our students have a school lunch, because we're number one in food insecurity. We need to invest in their mental health. Our kids are suffering silently. So these are just some of the things that I would do when we stop EFA accounts. Thank you.
You got a minute if you want to add more to your answer.
Well, Fred was right. They are the problem, the General Assembly, that puts all these standards on the local schools. They're the ones that set the laws, right? But we can't take it completely away, because we'll hurt kids that are currently got that opportunity. So as much as I'd like to never it started, once we start something like that, it affects their lives. And now the only way to get away from that is to scale it back in increments until we can get away from the EFA accounts. But the homeschool people, they sacrifice a lot of their time and a lot of their money to do this, and I think it's great for homeschoolers. But it's something that we don't want to hurt the kids that get that opportunity to go to that private school that didn't have it before. And that's the ones that I want to look at helping.
All right, Fred, you got one more 60 seconds.
90% of the kids in Arkansas are in public education. I'm going to be focused on the 90%. Now let's state this fact. 95% of the kids that have EFA accounts were already in private school. All we did was write a check to private schools. We need to take this $400 million and invest it in the proper place, and that's the public education system, so that all our kids have an opportunity, not just a few.
I'm going to take a point of personal privilege here and ask you a follow-up question, Senator, because I wanted some clarification on this. You're saying that you're not going to follow the law in administering these education freedom accounts. Would you?
I am saying. Is my microphone on?
Yeah.
I am saying I will be issuing an executive order, and I will not be administering those accounts.
Okay. I'd ask the audience to, even if the rhetorical questions come your way, maybe don't answer them. Don't give them the satisfaction of answering them there. Sorry about that. But we got to keep, I don't want things to get out of control. So I'm just asking for crowd behavior on that. All right. Fred, this next question comes to you first. Let's talk about prisons and what we're going to do about our criminal justice system here in the state of Arkansas. You're both on record as being opposed to the Franklin County prison. I'm sure this will come up in some of your answers here, and so I'm happy to hear y'all expound on that a little bit more. But I'd really like to get beyond that. Assuming that a prison does not get built in Franklin County, because it is not headed that way at this moment, what other ideas do you have for finding more prison beds in the state of Arkansas? What should we be doing as a state? What would you be leading on as governor to do that?
So, Roby, I don't think we need more prison beds. What I think we need is more opportunities for people. We need more opportunities for our young people. You know, you guys, if you all have followed me, there's two things I've always talked about. It was young people having summer employment. And this is what that does. Number one, if they have summer employment, we can partner with a career readiness certificate. We have worker shortages everywhere in the state of Arkansas. If we set our young people on the right path, guess what? That opportunity is there, and we can stem the tide of people going into the prison system. Number two, I always talk about literacy. There is a correlation between literacy and prison. You all, we need to make sure, and this is a piece on education as well. We need to make sure that our students are learning to read. That means there's a foundation with child care. With that foundation, we build on literacy, and we make sure our students are able to read, and that will stem the tide also. So we have to provide opportunity for these young people so that we won't have a prison population and we can stem the tide.
All right, Colt, your position.
So, unfortunately, with the county backup that we have currently, that they've strained on us, we are in a situation for the counties. But talking with Sheriff Higgins out of Pulaski County, he's got a really good plan. I'm actually going to visit with him next week, but I've had a couple conversations with him. What he's done is he wants to extend existing jails, and he has his own recidivism programs to help. I think they've lowered that down to 9% in that area. So, with that being said, we have plans to handle what we have on hand to try to prevent more from coming. But we do have put ourselves in a situation where we do have to extend Calico Rock, and that was in a plan for a long time ago. We've also we need more rehabilitation programs, Roby, and we need to start locking up bad guys. I mean, I think that we let rapists go pretty freely most of the time, then we'll lock up a guy that had a pound of marijuana on him. So we need to adjust our priorities on who's a bad guy and who's not a bad guy. So with that being said, I think, yes, we do need to extend Calico Rock, and yes, we need to start on these rehabilitation programs and look at extending some of the county facilities and starting these rehabilitation programs. That way the inmates are close to home, they're with their family, and they're getting clean. They've got a 12-week drug-free program, and then they spend about 8 months learning apprenticeship programs, trying to get them a job and get them a head start.
All right. You each get 60 seconds for rebuttal or additional.
Well, Colt, I am glad that you mentioned Eric Higgins, because I actually worked with Eric Higgins to actually create the program for the recidivism. So thank you for that acknowledgement. Now, what
You don't believe in it?
No, I do believe in it. That's why we have it. So I'm just telling you all, we need to work on recidivism. So that is a good point. That is a good point.
All right. You got another 60 if you want it.
No, that's he said it. I had a good point.
All right. Colt, you get the first question on this one, if I've got my order right here. Let's talk about health care, health insurance. We've seen in most recent report that children's health insurance is the uninsured are on the uptake. We've seen it go from about 4% to 8%. We know that a lot of hospitals are on the edge of closing. We're seeing a lot happen in that space right there. What's your vision for expanding health insurance and broadening health care in the state of Arkansas?
Well, we know what caused this, and that come from the big beautiful bill. It's from a federal level, and for those of you that don't know, it's a 77-23 split. And what we've got to do is we've got to accommodate whatever the federal government asks us to do. So, and that is the work requirement, 80-hour work week. There's two things that most people don't have that we've got to get in front of, and that's access to the internet so they can apply for the 80 hours and transportation to get to that 80 hours. And, you know, unfortunately, the government puts these rules in place, and it's our job to try to help these people get to that and get these people on Medicaid, because that is what's shutting our hospitals down. People are hurting themselves without insurance, and then it just costs the hospital. So I think as the state, I like what Montana's plan is, and that's where they do a one-on-one career counselor, and they target the working class folks, and they bring them in one-on-one and work with them and get them into the workforce and become tax producers instead of tax consumers. And, you know, Mississippi County, we've been seeing that a lot, and it's got some really good features out there. And as I go to Pulaski County more and more, and I talk about these programs, how they'll pay a 5-year down payment for your house that's forgiven as long as you work at the steel company. And Arkansas has a lot of good programs like that, but I don't think we share the knowledge well to get these people to where they need to be.
All right, Fred.
Can you restate the question?
Repeat the question. So what's your vision for increasing health insurance availability for citizens and for broadening our health care coverage in the state of Arkansas?
So, Roby, I was there when we passed the Affordable Care Act maybe about 10 years ago. Now we're back in the same position that we were about 10 years ago. You all, there's about 500,000 people that we have cut off Medicaid rolls, 100,000 of them being children. You all, this is unacceptable. We should not only protect Medicaid, but we have to invest in Medicaid. We have to put people back on the rolls because our hospitals are closing at record rates again. We have to protect Medicaid. We have to make sure that everybody, not everybody, but we need to make sure that people are covered. And when we do that, we are making Arkansas a better place. Thank you.
Got 60 seconds if you want to take it.
Well, unfortunately, we can't afford that because we already spent about $1.8 billion on just 811,000 folks that's on it. So, you know, if we go on our own way, then we have to pay 100% of that, and we just can't afford it. So what we got to do is we've got to manage a way to get to these people, basically take the horse and lead it to water.
All right, 60 more seconds.
So if we can't afford it, that means our hospitals are going to close. No, we can afford it. We must afford it because if we're going to protect the quality of life of Arkansans, our hospitals have to be closed. Our hospitals have to be open. Number two is this. If we're going to make sure that our mothers and our children are protected, we have to make sure our hospitals are open. That is a non-negotiable, you all. That's a non-negotiable because we are talking about the lives of Arkansans. We need to protect Medicaid. We need to keep our hospitals open. We need to make sure that the coverage is there, and mothers should not have to look for coverage after 60 days. 12-month postpartum care is a day one option for me. Thank you.
All right, if this was a soccer game, we'd be taking a water break right now. So if you guys want to take a sip of water, we'll do that. So we're about halfway through what we had budgeted for our questions, although I think we're about right on track. So you guys are doing fine. So let's turn our attention. Fred, you will be first on this question here. What is the most important economic issue facing Arkansans, and how do you propose to solve it?
The most important economic issue facing Arkansas is probably a prepared workforce. And I will tell you all this. We have workforce shortages in a lot of areas. And so as I stated earlier, I talk about getting young people into that pipeline. But there's other pieces to that. Number one, we have to bring labor unions on. And I say that because we are lacking skilled trades workers. So with our labor unions, bringing them into our high schools, we can get that pipeline because kids should have multiple options for career paths. If you want to go to college, go to college. If you want to go to the military, let's go to the military. But if you want to earn while you learn, let's get labor unions and apprenticeship programs in place. We need to begin to have our skilled labor active and working, and I think we can address workforce shortages like that. As I said before, I want to make sure that we have summer employment programs, partner with career readiness certificates, so that we can have a workforce ready on day one. And that right there will actually solve some of our issues on workforce shortages and address economic development issues.
All right, Colt, what's the most important economic issue facing Arkansans, and how do you propose to solve that?
I think it's affordability, Roby. I think that everything's gone up. The wages have stayed the same. I think that we haven't done a very good job of managing a lot of our third-party companies that come in here, insurance companies, grocery bills. You know, we're basically a railroad station, and everything keeps rising costs, and there's no accountability that comes with that. And I think if, you know, it's 40 years old before the average kid buys their first house now, and that's a problem. I was 18 years old when I got my first house. And what we need to work on is figuring out a way for the youth to see the future and want things. And if they don't want anything, they don't respect themselves, they don't respect others, and then they go to crime. And I think that as a state that we could really help this out by, one, an insurance commissioner would actually do his job and go in there and start comparing these prices and making sure that we're holding these folks accountable for driving up the price. I think they're making too much money, and I think a lot of it needs to go back to the people. Another thing is, you know, the workforce is a problem. We've got lots of job openings. They just don't know the opportunities there. And another thing for our economic development area is our infrastructure is falling apart. We've got, for the 15 counties we got doing really well, we've got 60 counties hurting really bad, and that's why this county turnback dollar is going to be very important, that we help these small communities, your Franklin counties, Logan counties, Johnson counties, and we get in there and we start giving them some money back and fixing their infrastructure, then more people's going to come.
All right, I'll give you both another 60 seconds on this topic if you want, Fred.
Well, I would add to this. Another topic or another point is this. You know, we offer incentives to the companies to come. We need to make sure that these companies are bringing living wage jobs. If we're talking about an affordability crisis, one part of it is that you don't need to have to work 2 or 3 jobs to make ends meet. We need to make sure that jobs that we are giving Arkansas incentives to are returning to Arkansans a living wage job. That's what we must do to solve or resolve part of our affordability crisis.
Colt?
Well, I mean, like I say, there's still a lot of good jobs out there. People just don't want to work. And we provide that opportunity. We show them the way that these are the things. I think we have the launch program. I went on there. It's kind of confusing to get on there and look at it. But I think if we get more people involved in that workforce, then the economy is just going to get better.
Okay. Colt, you get the first round on this one. There have been a lot of concerns raised in communities about data centers. And I guess there's been some proposals for moratoriums on data centers. There's been a lot of people that have a lot of questions about how they're going to impact communities. My question to you is, should there be any restrictions placed on data centers? Do you believe that there should be? And if so, what should the state's policy on this be?
I think the state's policy should be whatever the people want. If they want a data center, give them a data center. If they don't want one, it shouldn't go there.
How do you determine that?
Whether that's where you have county judges, quorum courts, and local leaders decide that. I'm not for it. I think that on a state level does need to be involved, because we have a GIS group, which I've met, and I'm not impressed with their work either. I mean, it seems like everything that comes out of that Little Rock Capitol does not do a very good job at anything. And the GIS group should be determining if we have the capabilities before anything's moved, because we don't know that our people are going to have water. We don't know, and they say they will, that we know they don't have enough electricity. And, you know, these are the common things that we need to survive, and I think the state should be involved in that part of it, but the local county leaders is going to be the only way to go, and if they don't want a data center, don't put one there.
Yeah. Should there be a moratorium on data centers being built?
If they want a moratorium, put a moratorium. Whatever they want. If they don't, then don't put one. But because there are places that would want one, because it does have some kind of benefit to some communities. But we need to do things the right way, and it goes back to the prison, the same thing. Why would you put a prison there I mean, if you looked at all the paperwork that these guys got handed to them in the Senate, I mean, it looked great, but it was all bad stuff, wrong information.
It was a good pause button there that we hit. So, Fred, my question to you, given the concerns that communities have raised about data centers, should there be a moratorium on data center construction, and what additional restrictions, if any, should there be at the state level?
There should definitely be a moratorium on data center. I will tell you this because data centers are popping up at alarming rates. In Arkansans, they're worried, and they have every right to be. They have every right to be, because we don't know the long-term impact of these data centers. And so, yes, we need a moratorium so that we can begin to study the long-term impacts, good or bad, of data centers. Now, here's the thing. We're all carrying one of these. So we know that we're probably going to need data centers. But we just don't know how many. We don't know the long-term impacts. And if the people are asking us for a moratorium, guess what we should give them? A moratorium. And so that's my stance on it. I mean, I've had too many people contact me and say, Senator Love, come and look at what they're doing to our land. Come and look at what is the long-term impact. If we don't know this, we need to put a pause on it. And then we need to say, all right, now how do we move forward from here in a responsible manner?
All right, keep the 60-second rebuttal intact here, but Colt, I'm going to kind of pivot off of everybody's answers here. Would you recruit data centers to Arkansas if you were governor?
I mean, if it would add a benefit to an area, I wouldn't mind it. If, you know, we've got some areas that are starving for something like that, but they would have their own independent power source, independent water source, and we can do that. And there's a couple ways. One, they buy their own natural gas wells. Two, they could use that water from the gas wells, they could reclaim it, and then it's got its own independent device. I'm not going to hold the state back if somebody wanted it, because I know there's some counties that do want it. I mean, would we want to hold them back from getting that profit? That would be more than their total revenue for 5 years. So no, I mean, I wouldn't I would let the local government decide what they want. That simple.
Fred, if you were governor, would you recruit data centers to Arkansas?
I don't think I would recruit data centers to Arkansas. I think that there's a lot better, the incentives that we give to data centers, I think there's a lot better opportunity to actually grow our own here and not invest in data centers. So I would not personally recruit data centers as the next governor of the great state of Arkansas.
All right, our next question. Fred, you'll be first. Colt, you'll be second. Minute and a half each before a 1 minute rebuttal. Simple, straightforward question. Do you support legalizing recreational marijuana?
No.
Is it yes or no?
Well, you can expound on it if you want to. But if no is your answer, that's your answer. Anything else to expound on, Fred?
No.
Okay. What's your reason for being against it?
Roby, it's not so much that I'm against it, but let me talk to you all personally about some things that have happened to me in my past. You see, when you grow up in a community where you see recreational, that's not always a positive thing. You know, I've sat at a crosswalk at my daughter's school. Kids hop out of the car. Marijuana is just all over. You would just think like people have smoked marijuana that morning, that night. I just don't think that it is something that I can support. I have seen the long-term impact of it, and my answer is no, I would not be supporting it.
Okay. Colt, same question to you with an explanation.
Fred definitely did not inhale. We got that. And but so I'm for whatever Arkansas wants. If it goes to the polls, then it's something that the people want, and they vote for it. I think everything should revolve around what Arkansans want. This is where we lose track, and this is where the Senate struggles really bad in the House, because it doesn't matter what you want. It matters what the people want. And we've lost track of that in our state government. But that's why I'm running again, Roby. I'll keep coming up with reasons why, but you know, in all seriousness, I think if people want marijuana, let them have marijuana. Who cares? How many people in here know somebody that smokes marijuana? Almost everybody. They put it on babies, lotion to soothe the pain. I mean, there's a lot of good things that it brings. So I'm not going to say I'm against it, but let the people decide. I don't smoke marijuana, just so you know.
All right, I don't know if we need to go ahead.
Robbie, what was the question?
Well, the question was, do you support legalizing recreational marijuana?
Right. The question was, do I support it? The question was not if the people want it. If the people want it and they vote for it and they say yes, then I will support it. But the question was not if the people want it, it's if I would support it, and I do not support it.
You feel like you answered your question directly enough?
Yeah, I still stick with the same, whatever the people want.
Okay. Governor Sarah Sanders is not here today. She declined the invitation, as we noted at the beginning. Colt, you get to go first on this question. What's her biggest failure in office?
Listening, her leadership skills. I mean, there's a bunch of them. In my personal opinion, and I don't know what everybody's is, but I think she's failed us by being a steward of the people and a steward of the land. And to be a true Arkansan, you actually care about what people say, you care about what people think, and you care about what's going to happen in our future. We're planning for election years, and I see this so often. Everybody's just, and you go to counties and you go to cities, and they're planning for election years. We need to be planning for the future of our great-great-great-grandchildren. So her biggest flaw is wanting to go to D.C. too early before she earned it. And if she would have put her head here and helped Arkansas, she had all the money in the world. Asa Hutchinson left her an inheritance that you would not believe, and we've pissed it away. So now that we're at this last minute, we've got to catch up. So if I win governor, it's going to be a lot of work. I mean, she just made it harder on every single person here. But I think her leadership skills is her biggest flaw. I think I use this metaphor all the time. She reminds me of when I was 22 years old. I got my first leadership job when I was 22. And I was the fastest, I was the best, I was the smartest 22-year-old you've ever seen. And then I got humbled over the years, and I started surrounding myself with good teams. So Sarah Sanders reminds me of a 22-year-old Colt Shelby. And luckily I've grown from then, and I know to surround myself with good people. And I've done that, and that's what's led me here today.
Mm-hmm. Fred, what do you think is Governor Sanders' biggest failure?
The Arkansas Learns Act. I say that's the biggest failure because that's going to do the most damage to the most people, to our most valuable resource that we have, which is our children. The Arkansas Learns Act is crippling. It is crippling our public education system. That is the biggest failure that the governor has. And that is something that I will be fighting against. And it is something that I will be fighting for you. Our kids are our most precious commodity. We must invest in them like nobody's business. That's how my mom used to say, like nobody's business. We must invest in them. And so when we take $400 million and put it in private schools, and pay tuition for kids who have already had that choice, we're leaving the other 90% to fend for themselves. That is the biggest failure, and it's the biggest long-term impact that the governor is the state of Arkansas is going to face in a long time.
All right, Fred first on this question, and then Colt second. You are in a room full of journalists. I just warn you on answering this question. What changes, if any, would you recommend for the Freedom of Information Act?
Roby, we need to actually strengthen the Freedom of Information Act. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I get FOIA'd all the time. But I'm going to tell you this. I truly believe in the Freedom of Information Act. I was probably one of only 2 senators that voted against that bill that they put forward. We have to shine light on everything. It doesn't matter who you are. Sunlight, transparency. That's what we must have. That helps our press report, but also that helps the people understand what's going on. And that right there, that is the true power. So the FOIA, the last bill that we passed, we need to repeal it. Like I said, I was only one of 2 senators that voted against that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Colt, what would you change, for better or for worse, depending on your perspective?
I think it needs opened up completely. I don't know why we have to hide anything. If you don't want mama to know, don't write it down. And it's a huge issue that we have, because, and I know this firsthand from going through the prison and finding out, all the information. So I really dug into this. But the problem is with local government, they struggle, and they get FOIA'd quite a bit, and they end up tying somebody up for a long period of time. I think people ought to pay for it. I think they ought to pay for somebody's time for doing all that work. But if that's the case, that's it. But open it up, let the public. I think the state would save a lot of money if they opened up that FOIA and we got to get in there and investigate of what really goes on behind closed doors. But I'd want the deleted message. That's where I'd look for first day. I don't want the ones you can see. I want everything that's deleted. Show it to me.
All right. Okay, last question before we move to our closing statements here. Colt, you'll go first on this one. What would you do on day one if you're elected governor? What would be the very first thing that you do?
This is my favorite question. I think I'd fire a lot of people. And it's just the incompetence. If you consistently do a bad job and each area keeps failing, then you're not good at your job. Then that's what happens in society. You lose your job for not doing a good job. And everything that we have, if it keeps running in the red, then education system, prime example. Okay, our education, we know we're not doing well. Well, sorry, we're going to have to let you go. It'd be crazy to get somebody from Arkansas to actually run the Secretary of Education, right? Board of Corrections, $850 million contract. They got 2 lobbyists on it. Now, I know I can't change that, but the General Assembly can. And I think a lot of these things need restructured. Our Board of Educations, our Department of Corrections, our DHS, every system that we have in place right now is failing. And whether it's because of the dictatorship, that's not my fault. They had an opportunity to do the right thing. They chose not to. So, it's just going to have to leave a lot of room for new people to get in there that care about it and want this state to do good, and they're going to be held accountable, whoever comes up next. Because there's not a lot you can do the first 100 days, right? You got General Assembly, it's in, you got to wait till the laws pass to get things moving. So there's not a whole lot of stuff you can get moving till the laws pass, but you can change people, change faces, and start restructuring organizations.
All right, Fred, what would you do on day one, policy-wise? What would be one of the first things that you do on your first day in office?
I would issue an executive order and stop the EFA accounts, period.
All right. Well, we don't need any more time for that, do we? So, all right.
Well, I could say, but here, you all, the vouchers are killing our public education system. I know I've said that before, but I'm going to say it again. The long-term impact of this policy is going to ruin public education, and it's going to ruin public education in our rural schools who need it the most. I want you all to hear what I'm saying. I want you to really, truly hear what I'm saying. You all, we have to make sure that we are taking care of our students, that we are taking care of our community.
All right, we move to our closing remarks now.
I got one more thing, Robbie,
go ahead.
that I
You
would
got some
like
time.
to see.
Yep.
So with that being said, the reason I'm stuck with the EFA accounts, there needs to be accountability with it, but the reason I stick with that is because I know it did help some of the kids that wouldn't have that opportunity. But there's another thing that's going on right now that needs more light, and that's the CES waiver program. That is something that I would like to see. That it's 2,000 people are on this waiting list for disabled kids, and it's 10-year wait time. And you don't know what happens to get off that wait time. Somebody has to pass away. So I think the state, because this is a Medicaid type funded program, I think that we need to get on top of that. And it's cheap enough that we could just get that off the board and move forward and get them families the help they need.
All right, Fred, I'll give you another 60. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you all, I was one of the senators that I was one of the representatives that we cleared the wait list. We had 3,000 kids on the CES wait list. We cleared it. Now we have 1,700. You all, we just have to make the investment, bite the bullet, and make sure that disabled students, disabled persons are covered. That's it. I mean, it's not a complex thing. We have to put the funds there to make sure that people are covered on the CES wait list. We have to.
All right, gentlemen, thank you. All right, that concludes our Q&A portion of the debate here by order of drawing. Fred, you'll go first. Colt, you'll go second. On closing statements, you each have 2 minutes apiece.
You all, I'm going to close like I opened. My first 3 questions to you all is, do you all believe that we can take another 4 years of Sarah Sanders? The answer is no. Do you all believe that Colt Shelby has the experience to run state government? The answer is no. Do you all believe that Fred Love has the experience and will be ready on day 1? The answer is yes. I'm not going to go through the governor's report card again because it's abysmal. But what I will say is this, is that I'm running to be the next governor of the great state of Arkansas because I love this state. I love the people. I love serving you all. And if you all would give me the honor to be the next governor of the great state of Arkansas, I will serve you, and I will serve you well. Thank you. God bless you, and God bless the great state of Arkansas.
All right, Colt.
Everybody, I thank you for being here and listening to this debate. I know we get a little rambling sometimes, but you know, I am more than qualified for this job. I've been in a leadership role for 20 years, which is a lot longer than Fred has. I've ran my own business. I run my own business. I've worked for some of the biggest organizations in the world. I think that my credentials, I'd put them against his any day of the week, and my background. So with that being said, I'm running for access, accountability, and affordability for Arkansas. I live the blue-collar life. I haven't lived off the government my whole life. I've worked just like you have, and I'm where I'm at today because of what I've done, not because you guys were paying me a paycheck. So hopefully in November, give me the opportunity to earn your vote, and I'm always available if you have any questions, concerns, and what I stand for. By all means, my number's out there. Thank you.
All right. Colt Shelby is your Libertarian candidate for governor, nominee for governor, and Fred Love, State Senator Fred Love, is your Democratic nominee for governor. Let's see.